Hi everybody! Today I'll show you how to create a custom inventory application using a low-code, no-code platform, DaDaBIK. I will do everything from scratch, so I don't use templates or anything like that, and I do it in about 90 minutes without coding. No code. So, as usual, the video is divided into three main parts. First, I'll show you the resulting application, what we will get after our work. Second, I'll introduce DaDaBIK, the platform we are going to use. Third and main part, I'll show you step by step how I actually created this inventory application. My name is Eugenio Tacchini, I'm the founder of DaDaBIK, and I hope you will enjoy this video. So here is the inventory application I will create. It's a web application that you can use to store the products you sell, or in general the items you have in your warehouse. For each product you can register the movements inbound and outbound with quantity and date. You can see the status of your warehouse for each product, the current quantity and the estimated value. You have a dashboard where you can see some important information, the products that are currently under stock. For a particular product you want to monitor, you can see the sales trend. And finally, the estimated value of your warehouse grouped by category. It's an app you can host wherever you want, in your company's server, in the cloud, even on your local laptop. You are not forced to store it on our cloud. It's a secure, multi-user, enterprise-ready application. In this app, we will have three user groups: admin, managers, and employees. Admins are the developers of the application, so they can modify the application itself and do everything they want. Then we have employees, they can register inbound and outbound movements. And finally, the managers of the store. They can also add and modify products and delete data. You have the classic CRUD forms to create, read, update, and delete data. Forms are responsive, so you can use this application also from your mobile phone. Inline edit on the grid is also available. You have 22 languages available. You can import and synchronize data from Excel, CSV, and ODS files. You can customize the layout. For example, you can change the logo, change the color theme, add your own CSS, and more. You will have an export to PDF feature. Maybe, for example, you want to export in PDF all the movements related to a product. And you can also write your own PDF template in case the default one doesn't fit your needs. If you need to integrate this app with other applications, no problem. You have many options. You have HTTP API that other applications can use to communicate with this one. You can export data in CSV. You can use LDAP authentication if you need. You can even share the authentication with a WordPress website. You have revisions audit features. So for each record, I can see who inserted, modified, or deleted the record and when. And finally, you can embed your app or part of it in a WordPress page. So after about 90 minutes, you'll get a working, enterprise-ready, no-code application. It's not a prototype, it's something you can really use in production right after the creation. Before starting the actual work, let me introduce the platform we are using. DaDaBIK is a low-code, no-code platform. It's available since 2001, so more than 20 years. It is constantly updated and has thousands of users from all over the world. Customers include individuals, small business, big companies, and many universities. The typical use is the creation of internal tools by both coders and non-coders, but it is not limited to internal tools. DaDaBIK comes in 3 editions: Pro, Enterprise and Platinum. I will use the Platinum edition in this video, but all the features we will use are available in DaDaBIK Enterprise as well, and many of them also in DaDaBIK Pro. As usual, I want to point out that DaDaBIK is a general purpose platform. An inventory application is just one example of application you can create with DaDaBIK. In another video, for example, I created a CRM application. You can build a library management application, an ERP, or even a simple contacts form. As I always say, anything that is based on data and uses forms, reports, and charts is a very good candidate for DaDaBIK. You can get DaDaBIK from dadabik.com/download. Okay, let's start. First thing, DaDaBIK needs a database to work, a place to store the data. It can be MySQL, PostgreSQL, Microsoft SQL Server, or SQLite. So the first thing I will do is the creation of an empty database we will use with DaDaBIK. I will use MySQL for this tutorial, and I will create the empty database on phpMyAdmin. But you can use MySQL Workbench, the MySQL console, or any other tool. Maybe your hosting provider gave you an admin console where you can create an empty database. Or maybe you already have a database with some tables, no problem. In that case, DaDaBIK will create an app on the top of that database. So in that case, you don't have to create it. So I'll call the database data-inventory and OK. Database created. So now let's install DaDaBIK. This is the zip file you get when you download DaDaBIK. So unzip. I get 2 folders, one containing the documentation, the other one containing the program files. I copy the content of this folder and paste it under my web root in an empty folder I created and called data inventory. Okay. All right. Before launching the installation, I need to fill the DaDaBIK configuration file with few parameters, like the database credentials and some others. This is my configuration file, empty. It's the file config_custom.php that you can find in the include folder. And this is an example of configuration file you have in the DaDaBIK documentation, containing only the bare minimum. I copy from here and I paste here. And I delete everything here, so we will edit everything together. Okay, here of course you need to use your serial number. DBMS type in our case is MySQL. Host. Where is your MySQL server? In my case, it's in this computer I'm using. It's not remote, it's not in the cloud. So the host is 127.0.0.1. It's the IP address of the local machine. Most of the time you can also use localhost, again, to refer to your local computer. Then we have database name, user, and password. So database name, as we said before, is data inventory. This is the MySQL user who can access this database, and it's also called Dada Inventory. The password is this one. Here we have two security parameters, secret key and DaDaBIK session name. Here you're supposed to use some random and complicated strings. Since this is just a test, I'm just adding some random letters, but please read the documentation to get additional details and best practices for these two strings. And yes, and finally my time zone is Europe, Rome. Okay, I will add a couple of other parameters here. One is the theme, blue-gray. This is the color theme we are going to use. This one is my favorite. And then let me write down and then I will explain it. Okay, these two additional parameters allow us to create tables and view using DaDaBIK without the need of any external tools such as PHPMyAdmin or MySQL Workbench. So as you can see here in this configuration file, you have some required parameters, these ones, and then you have a long list of optional parameters you can add. For the moment, we have added just these three, but maybe you need some other ones. Okay, let's do the installation now. We have all the files in the folder Dada Inventory, so our application is reachable from localhost / Dada Inventory, and we run install.php. This is the file you have to run to install DaDaBIK. Okay, we have some options here. We'll create a blank empty application. Okay. Okay, so let's see the application created. View the application. We log in using the default admin user, that is root, username root, password Letizia, and for the moment it's an empty application. As you can see, we can see the two default users created by DaDaBIK and two default groups, but that's it. This is our empty application just created. If you are an admin user, and we are root, an admin user, you can edit the application. This is called the admin area, and it's the place where we develop, configure our application. So I'll keep two tabs open, one on this admin area and the other one on the actual resulting application. Okay, first we have to create the tables where we store our information. The first table we need is our products table. We can call it products, items, the name is up to you. It contains the information about the items we have in our warehouse, in our store, if it is a store. Maybe you have a warehouse in a school, in a library, it doesn't need to be a store. The second table will be movements, and there we will store inbound and outbound movements. So when you buy, or in general, when we buy or in general we receive items in our warehouse, we'll have an inbound movement. when we sell items, or in general we take items from our warehouse, we have an outbound movement. So let's do it. Create new table with name products. Okay, sorry, my fault probably. I have a typo in my configuration file. Yes, in fact, instead of data tab, I wrote data. Okay, so let's do it again. Products. So by default, when you create a table, DaDaBIK will add as a first field a field called ID. It's the primary key and it's auto increment. What is a primary key? A primary key is a field in your table that uniquely represent each record, each row in your table. In our case, each product. So we cannot have two products having the same ID. To make things easier, the field is auto increment. So every time you add a new product, DaDaBIK will automatically assign a new number, starting from 1, then 2, then 3, and so on and so forth. Just a little note, I said the primary key is a field. To be precise, the primary key of a table can be composed by a set of 2 or more fields. But I don't want to discuss this aspect now, and in this application we'll always have a primary key composed by just one field. So what else we need? We need a name for the product. The field type for the name is short text, nullable, no. What is nullable? If it's set to yes, it means that you can add a product without name. Or using the database jargon, having a name null. But in our case, we always need a name for a product. So nullable, no. Field type, for each field we choose the field type. We have numbers, we have text, we have date times fields. For products, for product names, it's okay, a short text. And a short text field is a field that contains maximum 255 characters. Letters, numbers, any characters. Okay, so other fields. I would say category. Maybe we have several categories for our products. Description. So we have a name, but maybe we also need a long description. Maybe nullable yes this time, because we allow also products without description. And then we need the cost. It's a decimal number. The price, again, decimal number. So what cost, what we pay to get this product, and price, of course, the amount we charge when we sell this product. And then I would say that we need a picture, maybe. Short text, nullable, yes. Why short text for the picture? Because of the way DaDaBIK manages file uploading. So when you upload a file in the database, DaDaBIK writes the name of the file, while the file itself is stored in the file system. And finally, I would say quantity, the amount, the number of items for that product we have in our warehouse. And that's a number, integer number. Okay, let's save. All right. So this is a standard table, so you can add as many fields you want according to your needs. For example, what else you might need? We have an ID, as we said before, but maybe you also want an internal code. In addition to the ID that DaDaBIK automatically assigns, maybe you want an additional internal code. You can have it. Position. if you have a huge warehouse, you may want to assign a position to each product. That would be another field, and you can add them. To confirm that these are just standard MySQL tables, let me open PHPMyAdmin. So we are in the data inventory database. As you can see, there are a lot of tables whose name starts with DaDaBIK. These are, internal tables that DaDaBIK uses to work, basically. But you can also see the products table, okay? The table we just created. So I can see the tables created in DaDaBIK also from here, and vice versa. If I create a table from PHPMyAdmin, I will see it in this DaDaBIK page as well. So with DaDaBIK, you'll never experience data vendor lock-in. We use a standard relational database that you can also query from outside DaDaBIK, or you can even export if you want. Or you can even export if you want. Let me add something more about how we represent our items in the table products, because there are two very different ways to do it. One way, the one we used, is to represent each product as a record in our table. So if we have 50 iPhone 13 black 256 gigabyte, we have one record representing the product iPhone 13 black 256 gigabytes, and then we represent the quantity in a field, as we did. When we sell one of these 50 phones, the quantity should be updated to 49, okay? We don't keep track of the exact phone we sold, all right? We just registered the fact that one of those phones is now gone. The second alternative approach is representing each of those 50 phones, 50 iPhone 13 as a record. Maybe also tracking the serial number that products may have. Okay, in that case, I would be able to represent in our database the fact that you sold exactly that particular phone and not just one of the 50 iPhone 13 you had in stock. Depending on your business, this could be required or not, okay? And the resulting database would be slightly different. Anyway, in this tutorial, we will continue with the first solution. Okay, second table, movements. Inbound and outbound movements. We have the ID as usual. Then we need an ID product. Why we have an ID product here? For each movement, we have the related product. I will tell you something more about this in a second. Let me add the other fields as well. The quantity, maybe first the type short text. This will be inbound or outbound. Type, the quantity, integer, and maybe the date. What about ID product? Between products and movements, we can say we have a one-to-many relationship. For each product, we can have many movements, correct? So typically, to represent this relationship in database design, you put the primary key, in this case of product, in the table movements. Okay, so for each movement, we say that for this particular product, the one having ID, I don't know, 20, we have an inbound movement, quantity 10, date July the 3rd, 2022. All right, so save. Okay, the tables are created, but I forgot one little important step here. In settings, it's better to, it's easier to set install and enable tables on creation to yes. Why? Otherwise, you need to, and this is what I'm going to do in a second, you have to install the tables in DaDaBIK. So the creation is not enough. You have to tell DaDaBIK, use these tables in the application. However, if you set this to yes, when you create the table is installed automatically. You can skip that step. However, in our case, we have to install the tables from the pages page. Other not installed tables, we have to install movements and products. So here we are saying create a page for each of these tables in the application with a set of forms. We will see that in a moment. Anyway, install and install. Okay. So let's go back to our application now. Remember, we are in the admin area where we develop the application. In the other tab, we have the resulting application. Even if I reload everything, it seems that nothing has changed. The application is still empty. Why? Because by default, when a table is created and installed in DaDaBIK, all its permissions are set to no. You can change this behavior, but I left the default configuration on purpose because I wanted to explain how permissions work. So let's go back here, admin area, permissions, table products, group admin. So here we are setting the permissions for the group admin, the users group admin, for the table products. We have two set of permissions: table level permissions, field level permissions. So table level permissions, here we have the classic CRUD permission: create, read, update, we call it edit, delete. Okay, so for example, if I do something like this, yes, save, and I'll go back to my application, reload, now I have the products page here. Okay, no items found, well, because the table is empty. We have to create a new product. But anyway, as you can see now, we see at least the page in the menu. We have two additional permissions here. Details. Details in DaDaBIK is the page. We have a details page that represent the details of a specific record. That is a different permission respect to just read. We set yes here, and CSV. CSV, it means we can export to CSV this table. So yes. And then we have field level permissions. So it's very granular. For example, I can say that edit permission is set to yes, table level. However, only two fields are actually editable, like name and category, while the other ones are not. Okay, I can do something like that. But for the moment, I just set yes for all the fields. Okay. Except from the ID. For the ID, no for all. Why? Because it's an auto increment primary key. It's a number. In most of the cases, the user of the application don't need to see it. So save. Okay. Let's set the permissions for movements as well. And again, yes for all, for table level, and yes for all fields here, but no for all for ID. Let's reload. So now we can see products and movements. Basically, DaDaBIK created a CRUD app based on 2 tables for the moment. And according to the schema of our tables, it created forms that fit our schema based on some rules. For example, here I can create a new movement. Since this field was a date field in our database, we have a calendar picker as input element. What else? Quantity. Quantity was a numeric field, so automatically you get a validation error if you try to insert letters. There are some rules also based on the name of the fields. Let me give you an example. If your field name contains the word email, DaDaBIK requires email validation on the content. Anyway, these are the forms generated by DaDaBIK according to some rules. But of course, you can customize these forms and we'll do it. For example, here, type, instead of writing manually inbound or outbound, we want a radio button with the 2 options. We will do this in a moment. Let's try to add a product to see how it works, even if, as I said, the form is still a draft. Okay, so I don't know, iPhone 13, category phones, no description, cost, price, no picture, quantity, 20. So now that we have at least one product, you can see that not only you have these CRUD forms, so you can create new, you can edit, you can delete, you can search, and so on and so forth. On the top of the CRUD forms, you also get additional features such as export to PDF, import, export to CSV, generate chart, generate pivot table, and other things. Tell you something more about permissions, and then we will configure our forms. So let's go back here. Permissions. We discussed the table level permissions. So for each field you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 permissions. Results. This is the results grid you see here. So if you don't want to see a column here, for example, you don't want to see category, at least for this user group here, you can just do something like category, result, no. And category disappears. Okay. Then we have edit. Of course, here you can choose if the field must be in the edit form or not. For example, again, category, now it's yes. You can hide the field from the form, or you can set it as disabled, which means it's there, but I cannot edit it. Okay. Then we have create. That means the field is or not in the create form. Details. The details page is this one. Okay. Quick search, advanced search. Let me show you. This is the quick search form, and this is the advanced search form. Okay. And finally, CSV. If you want to include this field or not in a CSV export. So let's improve our forms using the form configurator now. Alright, this is a page you will use a lot, and from here you configure the fields of your forms. DaDaBIK creates a set of CRUD forms and tries to guess the best settings for each form field. But you probably need to change at least some of these settings for some of the fields. For example, let's configure the field category in the table products. Why? Because at the moment, as you can see from the form preview, we have a standard text box where we can specify the category, but instead we would like to have a drop-down menu with some options to choose from. As you can see, we have a lot of parameters for each field. I will show you the most important ones, and we will see some of the others later. So the very basic parameters are label, field type, and content type. So the label is literally what you see here in the form as label. So if I add something here, the label will change. Then field type. We have many different field types. We have text, is classic text box. We have text area. Text area is basically a bigger box, let's say. Then we have rich editor. Rich editor allows you to format your content with some formatting. For example, bold. You can change the font, something like that. Then we have a set of date and time fields. Date, date time, insert date time, and update date time. You choose these two times when you want DaDaBIK to add automatically the current date time in this field when you insert or when you update a record. Then we have list fields. This is the one, in particular cell single, the one we are going to use for category. We have file fields and other field types that we probably won't use for this tutorial. Select single. The second parameter I want to discuss is content type. The content type sometimes depends on the field type. For example, if you have a date field type, the content must be a date value, okay? However, in other cases, you can have different content types. For example, text field can contain a numeric value, an alphanumeric value, an email, a phone number, and you can choose the content type from here. When you set the content type, this impacts on the data validation. So if you set a field as email, DaDaBIK will only accept email addresses for that field. So now, as you can see, category is a menu, but it's empty because we have to specify the options. And we have two ways to set the possible options. You can set an hard-coded list of the options here, and this is what I'm going to do. Let me do it. Phones and laptops and musical instruments. Let's say that these are the three categories of products we sell. Okay, as you can see, to separate the options, by default you have to use this tilde character. And as you can see now, we have the three options in our category field. The other option you have is to set up a lookup field. So it will be, again, a drop-down menu, but instead of specifying the options here, you get the options from another table. But for category, this is fine. We will use lookup fields for another case. So save configuration. Okay, What about description? Description is fine. It's a text area, alphanumeric, and then we have cost, text numeric, price, everything is fine. Picture is text alphanumeric. No, we want to use a image file. Okay, all right. I have to set enable uploads to 1 in my configuration file. I forgot that. Okay, now we should work. All right, and quantity, text numeric. Okay, if you want, you can make it a little bit shorter with 5, for example. Okay, you can do the same for cost and price. Save. Movements. ID product. Okay, here for ID product we have to change something. Well, first of all, the label, I will call it just product, and then it's not a text field, but it's a select single. Again, it's a select single. Here we want to have as options the products we have in the products table. So every time we add a movement, we select a product from the products table, and then we specify type, quantity, and date. So select single. We don't fill this parameter this time, but these three parameters. Lookup table name, products. This is the table from where we get the options. Lookup table primary key field, which is the primary key of product, is ID. Lookup table linked fields. Here we want to specify, we need to specify the field we want to show here in the menu to the final user. And probably we want to show the name. Okay, so here we have iPhone 13 because that's the only product we have in our products table right now. So let me explain once again this part. Name is what you see here in the menu. ID, however, is what DaDaBIK will actually store in the movements table to represent the product. Not its name, but its ID. Save. And then type. It can be inbound or outbound. And this time we use select single radio. Select single radio. We have just two options, so that's the best, probably the best fit. And we specify here inbound, outbound. Okay, so save, and then we have quantity, that is already text numeric, is fine, and date is date, so it's fine. Let's see our application. Okay, let me delete this record, so we start from scratch, create new. Okay, now the form is much better. iPhone 13, let's create the same record but with this new form. Category, phones, description, whatever, cost and price, then picture. Okay, I have a picture here, file uploaded, and quantity 40. Okay. Okay, the picture is very big, as you can see, so what we can do, I mean, it's fine when we are in the edit form or in the details page. It's fine, probably, but in the results grid, especially when we will have several records, is too big. So in your configuration file, you can specify the maximum width and height of the pictures. So let me go back here, and this is the parameter I have to specify here. It's a long name, but anyway, it means the maximum height in pixel of the pictures displayed in the results grid. So regardless of your real size, when the picture is in the results grid, maximum height is 100 pixels. And of course the width will be reduced in case according to that. Okay, so let's go back here, and that's exactly what we wanted. Then let's try to register a movement. So we have an inbound movement of this product for I don't know, 30 items. Create new product iPhone inbound 30, date July 25th. Okay, so now if we go back to products, what you expect probably is that quantity is automatically updated with the movement, but this didn't happen. Okay, we will talk later about how to fix this. Let me do one more thing in the form configurator though. For each product, when I am in the edit form, for example, looking at this product, I want to see here the list of movements related to that product. This is called master detail form. And to implement that, from form configurator, products table, ID, so we have to set here to choose the primary key of products. We add a master detail view saying that the items table name is movements, and the items table foreign key field name is ID product. This can be a little confusing, so let me explain it again. We have a record here of the table products. Let's go back here. We want to add here the items of the table movements related to this product. To do that, we set as items table name movements, and that's pretty easy to understand, I guess. But how can DaDaBIK know which are the records in the table movements related to this particular product? Using the ID product field you have in movements. Okay, do you remember in the movements table you have the ID product telling you to which product that movement is related to. If you know what a foreign key is in relational databases, let me just tell you that this is not necessarily a foreign key. So don't take this literally. Probably it is a foreign key, but not necessarily. If you don't know what is a foreign key, that's fine. I think you will understand anyway how master detail forms work. So let me save this. Products. Okay, now here, as you can see, we can see all the movements related to this product. And instead of adding the movements from here and choosing each time the product, we can add the movements from here, and as you can see, the product is already selected. So let's talk about the quantity now I mean this field that we mentioned before. Because I would say it's the elephant in the room. We obviously don't want to manually update the quantity every time we register a movement, right? So we can do that in two ways. First one, we keep the field here, quantity as it is, and we use the so-called operational hooks. What are operational hooks? Basically, you can tell DaDaBIK something like this. When there is an operation on this table, execute this code. For example, here we could say DaDaBIK, every time there is a modification in the movements table, update the related quantity in the products table. This, however, requires a little amount of PHP code. We have to write the code that updates the products table and tell DaDaBIK to use it as a hook. However, the idea was to build this application without any PHP or JavaScript code. So I will show you another second option. Also, let me tell you that this first option, from the point of view of the database design, is not very good. This is also called redundant field, because the value, this value, is the result of the inbound movements on this product minus the outbound movements. So it's a value we can get using other values already stored in our database. So it's redundant here technically. Okay, so second option. The second option is we calculate the quantity available on the fly. So we remove from here the field quantity, and we calculate the quantity available on the fly using a view. What is a view? You can think about it as a virtual table created on the top of a real table. I'm simplifying a bit, but as a first definition is, I would say, totally fine. Let's say you have your products table and you often want to see only the phones from this table. Instead of searching every time by category, something like this, and then search, you can create, this is just an example of view, you can create a view filtering by category. You can call it, for example, phone products, and you can use in DaDaBIK that view exactly as it was a standard table. So when you open that view, MySQL behind the scenes will execute a query filtering by category, and you will see only phones. Okay, that was an example, a simple example of view. The one we are going to build for managing the quantity issue is a bit more complicated. So this is going to be the most complicated part of this tutorial. So please pay attention. So how can you create a view in DaDaBIK? Data, views. Here, to define the original tables and the fields you need to use SQL. SQL is the standard language we use to execute a query on a database. Even if you don't know anything about SQL, I think that you will understand what I'm going to do now. By the way, a few years ago I published an SQL tutorial. You can see the link here in the description in case you want to learn more. Let's say we want to create a view that is exactly as the original table is. Okay, it doesn't make sense, but I think it's useful to start from here. So let's say that we want to create a view based on the table products, and let's say that the name is products2. Okay, create a new view with name products2 as, and here we write select we want to select all the fields from the table products. So we can do something like select asterisk, which means all the fields from products. That's it. Instead of using the asterisk, we can also specify the fields list. So ID, name, category, and so on and so forth. Let's do something more. Let's say that we want only in our view, the example I made before, phone products view. So we call it phone products, and we add here where, we add here a filter where category equal to phones. Okay, that would be another view. But now let's work on the view we actually need. I would call it warehouse, and that's basically exactly as the products table, so with ID, name, category, and so on and so forth. The only difference is the quantity field. The quantity field is calculated according to the movement, according to the movements we have in the movements table. Let's write the first draft of the view. Maybe since we are learning how to create a view, it's better probably to do it on PHP-MyAdmin, so we can test step by step what we are doing before creating the view in DaDaBIK. This is not a needed step, but since we are learning, probably it's easier. Before continuing, let me add some fake data on in our products and movements table. Otherwise, we don't have enough data for testing to see some meaningful results. Okay, I'll be back in a few seconds. Okay, now we have 6 products. Quantity here is 0 for all the products, but we have many movements for each one. So basically we still have to fix the quantity issue. Okay, if we need the full SQL code, and we need it in PHP-MyAdmin, in DaDaBIK we can miss some part of the code, the starting part, but in PHP-MyAdmin we have to write create view, we said warehouse as select, and then all the fields of the table products we said, so ID, name, description, cost, price, picture, name, category, I missed category. Okay, now we have quantity here, but we don't want to get quantity from the quantity field of the products table. We want to compute it, we said. So from products. Okay. Now here we have the most difficult part. Between parentheses here we compute the quantity using the movements table. So basically it's, and this is called a subquery. So we have a query, a select query. Inside the select query we have another query, another select query. So here we want to take all the inbound movements related to a product, we sum together the quantity, and minus all the outbound movements. So select some quantity from movements where type equal to inbound minus, and then I just copy everything from here with outbound. Okay, and we call this as quantity. So all this expression is quantity for us. So not the original quantity, the one we had in the products table, but the one coming from this result. Okay, and we can also, since this is just a test, basically we can also avoid the actual creation of the view. We can just test the select statement. Okay, here I missed the parentheses. Okay, all right, now we have our products, our 6 products, and the quantity. What is the problem? The problem is that we computed the quantity using for all the products the same items in the movements table. So that's why quantity is always 53. This is not correct, right? But I wanted to go through all the little steps because, as I said, this could be a bit confusing. What we have to do to compute the quantity for each product differently. We have to add an additional filter here, so where type equal to inbound and ID product equal to what? Sorry. Basically, each time here you should have the ID of the product you are considering. So when you are considering this one, you need 1. This one, you need 2, and so on and so forth. Both here and here. Okay, but how we can express this? So basically, in these situations in SQL, you can add an alias to the table you are selecting data from, the products table, and it could be anything, like just A is fine. A. So this letter can now be used inside the subquery to refer to the products table. So basically here I can write something like ID product equal to A dot ID. Table products, the record I'm considering right now, dot ID, and in particular the field ID of that record, that is the ID of the product. Remember that in the products table we have a field that is called ID, that is the ID of the product, and we refer to basically that value using the ID product field in the movements table. Again here. All right, as you can see now, we have the correct quantity for each different product. So here, to compute the quantity, I'm using the items, the records in the movements table having ID product 1. Here, the ones having ID product 2, and so on and so forth. So this is exactly what we need for our view. I still want to do 2 things. The first one is I have to fix one particular issue that may arise if you don't have any outbound movement for a product. This is very technical thing, but this query wouldn't work if for a specific product you have only inbound movements and not outbound. Why? Because the result of this second part of the query would be technically null, not zero as you may think, and the result is that the whole subquery would be evaluated by MySQL as null, which is not what we want. So for example, if for product we have just one inbound movement of 50 and no outbound movements, the quantity should be 50. But with this expression would be null, which doesn't make sense for us, right? So what we can do to fix this, we can use if null. If null, all these expression, comma 0, means if this expression is null, then replace it with 0. Okay? To be sure that everything would work as expected, I would add an if null even to the first part. Okay? I don't do it here because I assume we have at least one inbound movement. So I assume that when you add a product, you do it because you also have an inbound movement. But I would add anyway, just to be sure. It doesn't hurt. Let's see if something changes. No, as expected, everything is as it was before. But we can handle that particular situation when we don't have outbound movements. Okay, this is the first thing I want to add. The second one is the estimated value. I will use this view also to show an additional column that I call estimated value, which is computed as the quantity multiplied by the cost. That is our estimated value for that product. We can just, copy everything here. So, comma, the whole expression multiply by cost as estimated value. Okay, so now for each product we also have the estimated value. There are other, more elegant ways to do this, but I think that this way we did is the easiest to understand. Okay, maybe when you see the whole query, the final query could be a little bit intimidating, but if you follow step by step since the beginning, it should be pretty clear. So now we can just copy everything from here and use it here. So warehouse as, okay, we have to add a unique field name. The unique field name we will use here is ID. So it is the field that uniquely identifies each record. Typically for tables, this field is the primary key, but for views, we don't have primary keys. We have to specify which field to use. That is the ID, because it comes from the ID of the products that is a primary key in products. Okay, sorry, I have to delete this final semicolon. Okay, the view has been also installed. Why? Because if you remember, here we finally set install and enable tables on creation, and not all, it impacts not only on tables but also on views. So we have to set the permissions, warehouse, admin, yes for all. Actually, we don't want to delete data from here. The warehouse view will be used just to, see, to read data. So we can just leave read, details, and CSV. And here, as usual, we can do something like, results, yes for all, details, and then yes for all, advanced search, and CSV, but no for all for ID, which is not very useful. Okay. All right, let me check the very good. So here we have now the warehouse page that is based on a view where we have each product with name, category, description, cost, and so on and so forth, the quantity, and the estimated value. What is wrong with this table? As you can see, for example, the first thing you may notice is that here we have the name of the file instead of the actual picture. Why? Because we still have to configure warehouse. Warehouse is a new view, so the fact that it comes from the table products doesn't mean that it needs exactly the same form configuration. In our case, yes, it does, but we have to, reconfigure the view in form configurator. When you have a view containing exactly the same field as another table, or even two tables that for some reason have exactly the same fields, then you can copy the form settings from one table or view to another. But in this case, since in the warehouse view we have two additional fields, we cannot do that. Maybe we can just configure picture, image file. Why? Because the other the other fields are probably fine. Name is fine, description is fine, cost, let me check, cost is fine, price is fine, estimated value is fine, quantity is fine. We have category, that is text alphanumeric. It should be select single. If you remember the settings we have in products with the three options, phones, laptops, and musical instruments, but since they are hard-coded options, so in the database you have just the value, and you don't process that value in any way, and since we don't insert from this view, we can just leave category as it is, because it will work basically, because it shows the category as it is stored in the database. Okay, and now we see the pictures. Okay, now we can also, if we want, we can also delete this column from the products table. It's not useful anymore. So basically we will use the products page to add and modify products, but we will see the situation of our warehouse from warehouse with quantity and estimated value. So from here, data, tables, products, we can delete quantity. We don't need it. And let's see if our view is working correctly. So let's take the first product, for example. We have a quantity 7 for the iPhone 13. Let's say that we want to register a new inbound movement for 10 items. Okay, so products, iPhone 13. If you want, you can add in master detail the movements table to the warehouse view as well. You can do it. I'm not doing that, but you can. So new inbound quantity 10, let's say, date, and save. Okay, let's see if the warehouse, okay, correct. We had 7 for quantity as quantity, and now it's 17. Okay, so everything is working correctly. The estimated value is, of course, computed according to the new quantity, considering the cost. Okay, now we'll make some charts and tabular reports, and we'll group them into a dashboard. I want to show 3 reports in my dashboard. First one, the estimated value grouped by category. So I want to see in a graph that we have, for example, 200,000 euros or dollars or whatever of phones, 150,000 of laptops, 300,000 of musical instruments, something like that. Second one, I want to see the sale, another chart, line chart showing me the sales trend for a specific product that I'm particularly interested in monitoring. And the third one, probably the most important one for an inventory application, a table showing me the understock products. So the products for which the quantity is lower a threshold. So let's start with the first one. Basically, we can just use the generate chart feature of provided by DaDaBIK. So we are in the warehouse page, generate chart, bar chart is fine. We want to aggregate data by category, and we want to show the sum of the estimated value. Okay. Again, the purpose of this first chart is I want to show for each category the estimated value. So for the category phones, I need to sum together all the estimated value for each product belonging to the category phone. So I aggregate data by category, and after this aggregation, I sum the estimated value of all the members, in this case all the products belonging to that category. Okay. All right, this is the resulting chart. So how can we embed a chart after having created it into a page, in our case into a dashboard? First of all, we have to create the dashboard. Let me open an additional page here, admin area, pages. We have several types of pages, right? The one we need is a custom page. A custom page is a page that is not based on a table or on a view. It's something we build in HTML. It could be in PHP. In our case, HTML is fine because we are going to just copy and paste the embed code we will get from here. But let me show how to create the page first. So to create a page, of course, we have to click here, add page. But what I want to do instead is I want to use the home page. The home page now is just, you know, a test. It contains just a standard text that DaDaBIK adds by default. We want to replace this with our dashboard. Home is now called dashboard, and the HTML content of the page is not this one anymore, but is the one that will compose our dashboard. So now show embed code, and here I copy everything from here and I paste it here. Sorry, I have to go in source code for first. Okay, because this is code. This is a graphical interface to add content, HTML content. But if I have to add code, as it is in this case, I have to show the source code first. Okay, and this is our first chart. Before saving, I want to add all the other charts, and then we fix everything before saving. So this is the first graph. Second graph, or maybe let's do the third one, the understock products first. Let's say that we want to see a table containing the products having a quantity less than, I don't know, 10. Okay. So one way to do that is, again, to create a view and to use the view in the dashboard. So data, okay, understock, select everything from warehouse where quantity less than 10. Okay, let's see the permission, admin. Again, it's just a read. It's just a read table, well, a read view. And yes for results, yes for details, for quick search, for advanced search, and for CSV, but no for everything related to the ID. Okay, so maybe we don't need all these fields for that table. We just need, the name of the product and maybe the quantity. That's it. So name is fine, but category is not very important for this. Cost, well, no. Picture, no. Quantity, yes. And estimated value, no. So now I reload my application and got the understock view as well. So these are the two products under stock. Okay, and we can show the embed code, take the code from here and embed it here. Okay. All right. Third one, it was the second in the original list, but anyway, it was the sales trend chart. So we take one of the product, for example, we want to monitor the iPhone 13 that has ID product 1, and we want to see the sales trend. So let's go to movements. Let's generate a chart. In this case, we need to use the advanced SQL report, but by default are disabled. So I have to go to my configuration file and enable these advanced reports. So enable advanced SQL report equal to 1. Again, movements. Okay, here we can type our custom SQL query. We need to select, let's go step by step. We need to select something from movements. Basically, we have to take records from the movements table, but not all the records. Only the ones having ID product 1, because those are the movements related to the iPhone 13, and having a type outbound, because those are the sales, right? So from movements where ID product equal to 1 and type equal to outbound. Now let's see that I want to group my data by month. So basically in my chart, and this would be a line chart, I want to see for each month the amount of iPhone 13 I sold. So I have to group by month date. We have the date field containing the exact date of that outbound movement, but we don't want to group by date. We could do that, but we would have the amount of iPhone 13 I sold in each day. I prefer to aggregate by month, okay, group by month date. And what I want to show, I want to show the month I'm considering, month date, and then sum quantity. So here, for each month, I want to see the amount of items sold. So I sum together all the quantity values I have in my outbound movements. Since all the movements we have in our test data are in 2022, this query is fine. However, remember that if you have data across multiple years, then each month would consider all the years. So you will see the quantity sold in January, but considering January 2020, for example, plus January 2021 plus January 2022. I'm telling you because maybe that is not what you want. In that case, the query should be slightly different, but in our case it's fine. I would also add an order by month date. Why? Because I want to see my data starting from the month number 1 and then the month number 2 and then the month number 3, right? And if I don't put this part, this is not guaranteed by SQL. So generate chart, and this is our chart. Show embed code, copy and paste. We paste it here. Now we have the 3 elements of our dashboard. If we look at the application, we have now a dashboard page with these 3 reports. However, the layout is not very good. Maybe we want to put the 3 charts on a row with some titles, something like that. So let's go back here. So we can add a table here, because a table can be used to arrange the layout of the dashboard. For example, here, 2 rows by 3 columns table, we can use it to, put here the three reports and here their titles. Okay, so let's cut and paste from here to here. And then we have the second graph, cut and paste. And finally the third one, cut and paste. Okay, and in the first row we can add something like estimated value by category. Maybe we can format heading 1, and then sales trend for iPhone 13. Again, format heading 1, and under stock products. Okay, so let's see how. Okay, better, but still we don't need the border of the table. So table properties, border 0. Let's see. Okay, I think it's fine now. Of course, you can improve the layout, but as a first draft is fine. Of course, if I move my pointer here, I can see the actual data, and remember that these reports are not simple screenshots. They are auto-updatable. That means that if the data changes, for example, a new movement is registered, when I open again this page, I will see different reports. One final thing I want to tell you about understock products is that we set basically a general threshold that was 10, right? But an improvement could be you can add an additional field in the products table, which is understock threshold. So each product will have its own threshold. Okay, and in the view creation, instead of writing just quantity less than 10, that would be quantity less than understock threshold. Okay, let me talk about users and groups now. At the moment we have the two default users created by DaDaBIK when you install DaDaBIK, root and Alfonso, and groups admin and default. But the idea for our application was to have 3 groups, so admin, that's fine, plus managers, plus employees. So the default group is not something we need, so I'll delete it. And users, as you can see, automatically the only users belonging to the default group has been deleted as well. So groups, I will add 2 groups. We said managers and another one, employees. And let me add some users. For example, we have Alice, email alice@alice.com, group employees, password. I have to go through this password encryptor. If as admin user I register new users, then you can also enable the self-registration. That is another thing. The password, since it's just a test, will be Alice, and that's it. Force password change, no. Okay, again, it's just a test. I don't want to force the users during after the next login to change their passwords. So multiple insert, save. Multiple insert allows me to add an additional record. This time is Bob, email bob@bob.com, managers, and the password is Bob. Insert as new. Okay, now we have 3 users. Okay, how about the permissions? Permissions, copy permissions. So we want to give to the managers group all the permission that the admin group has. So far we have set the permissions only for the admin group. Now we have an additional group and we copy the permissions that for the moment the admin group has to the managers group. They are not synchronized, so in case then you change the permissions on one of the 2 groups, this change will not be reflected automatically in the other group. And we select this empty option, which means for all the items, all the tables and custom pages. Okay, copy permission. Okay, so now the only difference between admin and managers is that if you are an admin user, you can also, configure the application, so you can go to the admin area and do all these things, while managers can only see the final application, this one. And for example, they cannot the only thing they cannot see from the final application is this part that is again displayed just to admin users. Okay, let's copy the permissions from admin also to employees, but then we need to make some modifications from admin to employees. Okay, now employees. So for employees, we just want to give to the employees the permission to add new movements. That's the only thing we want them to do. So products, let's start with products. For products, maybe we can maybe we want to leave the read permission, but delete no, edit no, create no, details and CSV yes. Okay, and then movements. On movements they can do everything. Under stock, so under stock I see that there is a my permission here, so I guess I made a mistake because this permission has been copied by the from the admin. So admin has in fact my, but it should be yes. We haven't talked in this tutorial about the my so-called ownership permissions. If you want, you can check the documentation, or you can also watch another tutorial where I build a CRM app, and in that case I used the my permissions. Okay, but the correct permission was yes here. So admin, managers, and employees yes. Okay, under stock, warehouse, Yes, we can. Maybe we can leave the the permissions to see the warehouse to the employees. And how about the dashboard? Well, it's up to you. You can give the permission or not. So let's see how the application changes according to the user logged in. Okay, so let's go back here, log out, and Bob. I can see everything and I can do everything. However, I don't see the admin folder where I can see and modify users and groups, so that's fine. Alice. Okay, Alice has a dashboard, movements, products. She can see the products, but she cannot add new products or delete or modify existing products. So that's exactly what we wanted to do. All right. Okay, let me tell you something about the layout of the application. What can you do to change the layout of a DaDaBIK application? The very first thing you can do, you can change the logo. This is the default logo, but probably you want to use your own logo. So in your configuration file, you can set logo img. I created a logo for this test and I call it inventory_logo.png. I saved the logo in the folder images, so I can just add this string here, logo img, with the path and the file name, and that's it. Okay. All right, this is the logo. What else? Well, you can do many things. You can change the theme. If you are familiar with CSS, you can also create your own color theme. You can choose if you want the classic left menu, as in this case, or a drop-down menu with all the pages here on the top of the application. You can add your own custom CSS, and this can have a huge impact on the layout because many elements in a DaDaBIK application have their own class, so you can apply a particular style to each of them. You can use HTML templates for the results grid. So by default, you have this classic results grid, but you can build something completely different by using the so-called HTML templates. I won't show you in action all these options because in another tutorial I already did it. The tutorial I mentioned before, create a CRM app in 2 hours. All these things are explained, so you can view that video. There are chapters, so you need to watch the layout chapter. The final 2 things you can do for the layout, you can use layout hooks. So each application has some points in the layout where you can attach your code, HTML, JavaScript, PHP. These are called layout hooks. So of course you can change the layout using these layout hooks. And finally, you can also change the code that DaDaBIK uses to generate part of the layout. There are 4 files you can edit. It's not a solution I suggest. Again, you can find more details in the other video, but you can do it. For the same reason, I won't go through the import feature. You can import data from Excel, CSV, or ODS files. Again, I did it in the other tutorial. And also another thing that could be useful for you, in this tutorial I showed you just 3 or 4 parameters in the form configurator, but you have as you saw, many parameters. So for example, you can change the position of the fields. You can put 2 fields on the same row, or 3. You can add separator, so blocks in your forms, something like that. In that tutorial I also explained something about performances, since people sometimes before buying DaDaBIK are concerned about the performances of low-code, no-code platforms in case you have a lot of data. In that tutorial I showed you an example with a table having 1 million records. I showed how DaDaBIK can be fast even with 1 million records. I also talked about 2 additional optional things you can do to make your application more secure and fast: referential integrity constraints and indices. So if you're interested, I suggest you to watch the other tutorial as well, or just some of the chapters. You will find the link in the description. Anyway, the application now is ready. It's basically the application I showed you at the beginning of this tutorial. So let me now discuss some future work. So possible improvements for this application that you can implement. First one, maybe you have different stores, and each store has its own warehouse. That's fine. You probably need an additional table, stores, and in the warehouse table you want to add the ID of the store. Okay, so the movements table also needs this new field, because when you register a movement, you also have to specify for which store. Okay, and this has an impact on the warehouse view and on other elements of our application as well. Another thing you can do is maybe when someone register a new movement, you want to send an email to someone. Okay, it's just an alert. You can do it using a DaDaBIK feature that is called email notices. That's one thing. Another thing I thought about is the cost is related to the cost of the products. At the moment we store the cost for each product, and it's the current cost. If the cost changes, we edit the cost from here. This means we lose the previous values, right? Maybe we want to know that when we bought this product 2 months ago, we paid it 900 and not 849. Okay, so maybe it would be useful to add a cost field to the movements table. It would be automatically computed using the current cost, and you can do it using calculated fields in DaDaBIK, but then it remains stored as it is. So even if the cost changes, you have the old value there for that inbound movement. What else? Something I mentioned at the very beginning of the tutorial, your internal code. Maybe in addition to the ID for products, you want to use your own internal code. And maybe you can use, if you use barcodes, you can use a barcode scanner to fill the internal code field when you fill the forms in the application. So that's another thing to discuss. What else? One rule that you can implement using custom validation functions in DaDaBIK is the following one. When we insert an outbound movement, we don't do any checks, right? So even if the quantity available is, I don't know, 2, I can add an outbound movement with quantity 5. So the available quantity finally in the warehouse will be -3. Of course, this doesn't work. What you can do is, again, you add a custom validation function, and when you insert an outbound movement, if the quantity available is not enough, the user will get an error. Another thing you can consider is the information about the lot of a product or the batch. So when you, for example, when you register a movement, an inbound movement, you will not just register the product, but product, lot, and quantity. Okay, so maybe you get some items from a specific lot and some other items, same product, from another lot. This is an information that maybe in your use case is useful. Very last improvement I want to discuss in the movements table. Maybe it would be useful in case you have several people working at your store. Maybe you want to know, well, you want to have an additional column here containing the username of the person who registered that movement. You can do it very easily. You can do it by using the ID user field type in Form Configurator. So guys, as usual, a quick recap. We created a complete and custom inventory app starting from scratch in about 90 minutes using a low-code, no-code platform, DaDaBIK. For any questions, you can write a comment here or send a message through the contact form you find at dadabik.com. How can you get DaDaBIK? Very easy. Visit dadabik.com/download to get your license. I'm creating a series of tutorials like this one. Each time I create a different application. So let me know if you want in the comments which application you would like me to build using DaDaBIK. Or more in general, if you're interested in the no-code, low-code world, click on subscribe and then hit the notification bell here on YouTube. That's it for today. See you next time. Ciao!